Alright guys, we're back with the Miami Vice Daytona Spyder Monogram 1/24 scale build in our three-way Miami Vice build-off. Okay, we're going to be looking at the completed chassis and drivetrain, all installed, painted, ready to go. As you can see, everything's installed now, from the rear diff, drive shaft, all the way to the engine. Now I want to just talk about a couple of things here. The first thing I want to mention is the alternator. Now the alternator sits here, and as the kit asks you to assemble it, the alternator will float in the air, attached to the pulley. It'll just float there. Apparently this is an anti-gravity alternator that just kind of sits in the air and doesn't need anything to hold it down as the engine runs. I've run into quite a few kits, usually monograms, Revels, that attach an alternator to the belt drive, and there's nothing holding the alternator in place. It just kind of floats there. Take, for example, no, this one is broken, so I can't show you that one. Well, I don't have one to show you right offhand. Wait, maybe I do. Another example. Okay, this is one example. This is a MPC and 4-cylinder engine. This is from the Pontiac Fiero kit. And as you can see here, the alternator is sitting, it's just floating in the air. So is the AC compressor. They're just sitting there, just happily doing absolutely nothing. Nothing holding them to the block. They just float in the air. I guess the belts are holding them in place. Here we have another model from MPC. Well, actually, this is the 6-cylinder engine from the Fiero. And as you can see, again, an alternator that just kind of floats in the air. No mounting brackets, nothing holding it on. Okay, that just kind of bugs me. And when I started putting this one together, the Ferrari Daytona, I found another alternator that's just kind of floating in the air. So I decided I'm not going to leave this that way. So what I did was I fabricated my own mounting bracket. There it is there, attached to the block. And then from the block to the alternator, to at least give some semblance of realism with the alternator actually attached to the block with a mounting bracket, instead of just floating out there in space. This adds a little more realism to this kit. It is lacking in a lot of detail, all of which I've had to put in myself, but that's just one detail which I couldn't overlook. Now, as you can see, I have the engine fully wired, all 8 cylinders. Engine is glued in and attached. Fits very well. The full exhaust system is installed. Now, one thing about the exhaust system is, when I was putting this one in, I would recommend that you glue in one side at a time, as it kind of fights you a little bit to go into the notches that hold it in place. So you do one at a time, and that'll allow you to get it situated and seated exactly where you need it. The same with the front. in one manifold, then the other, and then attach it to the pipe. There's going to be a little bit of a gap there as the pipe is not long enough, but I don't think it looks too bad, so I'm not really going to do anything to change that. And here you see the completely detailed exhaust, rear suspension, front suspension, everything exactly the way it should be. You can see the fuel tank, you can see all the discoloration from the heat, the individual components of the rear suspension. All of that is done with paint work, as the rear suspension is comprised of just 2 parts and the front suspension 1 part. Any detailing that you really want to show, you're going to have to put in yourself. But as this is a very simple kit, but if you do a little bit of extra, it really does add a lot to it. This is the one I built over 20 years ago. And as you can see, the difference of building box stock to modifying to bring out the realism in it is night and day. That, along with all the engine detailing, brings a very simple and so-so kit to a much more visually interesting level. As now there's quite a bit more to catch the eye. And here you can see the difference between the 2 drivetrains. As when you look at this engine, there's just so much there to see visually, much more detail to pick out, as opposed to the box stock engine with the minimal painting that they recommend. So this kit, as simple as it is, can be made to look as sophisticated as you want. Just depends on how much work you put into it. This is where the creativity comes in, and this is my favorite part of model building. Taking something that is just a simple no-brainer and making it look like an incredibly detailed piece where that is much more visually interesting and looks as though it was assembled from hundreds of pieces instead of just a few. This is the kind of build that I really enjoy, as it allows me to stretch my creative muscles. So that's it for this one. This is the entire chassis and drivetrain fully assembled on the Ferrari Daytona Spyder. We'll be back on the next one with further development. All right, see you then.